Welcome to Kitchen Table Conversations, a series of short and shareable conversation starters for those of us who have or love and support people with a complicated and beautiful brain. Here's your host, Angela Geddes.
Hi everyone, and welcome to Kitchen Table Conversations. I'm your host, Angela Geddes, and so happy to have you all here with me today. I hope that all of you are able to enjoy some of this nicer spring weather. I know here in southwestern Ontario, we're kind of hitting some record temperatures, which is just amazing. And I was saying to my friends just last week, the first really sunny day that we had after many gloomy and rainy days, I guess I was just noticing how I was feeling just so elated and just so positive and hopeful and energetic. And it just dawned on me that I mustn't have been any of those things to the same degree or near to the same degree when things were a little bit gloomy. So although I don't think I felt necessarily miserable, the contrast in the way that I felt with the sunshine was just really notable. So I think that, we're happy that we've made it through the winter here in Canada and looking forward to new opportunities and new growth and new blooms and lots of sunshine and hopefully some really positive opportunities. So there I am looking at the cup half full. And I tend to be a fairly optimistic person, but I think it's important to really take some time to really reflect on some of the challenges that we're experiencing here as a community. The news yesterday reported that there were 5 opioid-related overdoses and deaths in the KW area. That's Kitchener-Waterloo, Ontario. And it is just becoming a crisis everywhere. And I think that we do know that our mental health needs are on the rise. And I think for anybody who's been listening to me over the last little while, I also believe that there is a far more vulnerable population and people who have complex neurodevelopmental disorders such as autism spectrum disorder, fetal alcohol spectrum disorder, ADHD, etc., and other, learning disabilities and global developmental disorders, that kind of thing, are at higher risk of a lot of things, including mental health conditions, including substance misuse and abuse, and including suicidality. I think when it comes to autism spectrum disorder, many of us believe that people who are affected with autism tend to be rule-abiding and fairly rigid thinkers and, sort of steer away from risky behaviors and that kind of thing. But the research is telling us things that are quite different than that. So the research is telling us that the rates of suicidality or suicidal risk for people on this spectrum are 3 times higher than the general population. And many people with autism feel very alienated due to communication differences and maybe some social anxiety. And they also do turn to drugs and drinking as they feel that this can sometimes help them to fit in. I think many people on the autism spectrum disorder, do feel on the outside and not really feeling that sense of belonging that's so important to all of us. And for many people with autism, I know of many people who use medicinal marijuana to help kind of calm their anxious thoughts and to help with insomnia and some mood dysregulation. And alcohol can also be used for those same things. However, the implications can be quite different for brains that are neurodivergent. And so I think it's really important to understand, and I think that most of you know that I have a particular interest in fetal alcohol spectrum disorder as well, and the rates are much higher when we talk about suicidality and addictions. So statistics among the general population, 17.2 of typically developing young people have had thoughts of suicide over the last year. 2.4% of adolescents in the general population actually attempted at least once. So you can get more information on my website. I'm taking some of this information from a recent blog post from the Canadian FASD Research Network. And it goes on to share that 1.5% of typically developing males attempted suicide, and 3.2% of typically developing females attempted suicide. So the results for individuals with FASD are a little bit different and quite staggering, actually. So it indicates here, and in a couple of other articles, again, these are going to be posted on my website, so I encourage you to check out to get more details. But 35.2% of participants in a recent study experienced suicidal ideation, and that is twice the rate of the general population. And 13% of the participants in this study made at least one serious attempt over the previous year, which required medical attention and some serious interventions in order to prevent further. So I think this is really, really important to understand. And in my own practice over the last little bit, it's sort of interesting how my practice continues to evolve, and I continue to learn every single day from some of the most resilient and hardworking and tenacious individuals and family members that I've ever seen. But I have to tell you that the mental health and well-being of individuals affected by prenatal alcohol exposure and their family members are really in a vulnerable state much of the time. And I'm sharing this with you in hopes that it does go back to your kitchen tables for further conversation, because, as I've said before, in many instances, with the right information and the right supports and services, these kinds of things can be prevented. And alcohol and drug-exposed pregnancies can be prevented. And I think that that's really, really important. I'm just reading an article, and again, it'll be posted on my website, but key findings here from the Center of Disease Control and Prevention indicate that opioids prescribed just before pregnancy is associated with increased incidences of autism. We also know that illicit drug use impacts developing babies and is often found in combination with alcohol. And that combination can be really, really impactful on our growing babies. And again, there's no room for blame and shame. And I've been in this field for a very, very long time, and I've never seen anybody deliberately harm their growing babies. That's just not what happens. However, there continues to be a lot of misinformation out there, and there continues to be a lot of pregnancies that are exposed, unbeknownst to the parents to be, to things that will really impact development and put them at higher risk for a lot of things. A lot of, health conditions and mental health conditions that are really difficult. Just this week alone, I've had 3 young adults discuss with me quite frankly how difficult their current situation is, many of whom are feeling disengaged and disenfranchised and kind of hanging out in their basements without a lot to do, not feeling like they fit in very well, and certainly not having a service delivery system that understands them. And in many cases, family members that are still challenged with, this very capable person presenting themselves, but yet masking or hiding some real emotional and social and sensory and physiological real difficulties. And so, I've had, again, three young adults tell me, I'm just not sure that it's worth working this hard. That, conversations and thoughts around dying and maybe, having some assistance with dying would be easier than carrying on. So, this is very, very real, and I think that it has to be a conversation that we have. We need to start really thinking about how we can understand people in a different way and how we can provide environments and community safe spaces that allow people to really shine. And, to me, it's sort of, it's ridiculous to me to think that I have to be the one providing services to individuals from the GTA. And, that's 2.5 hours away from where I am. It's really unfortunate that we do not have services available, and again, that we haven't done a better job creating safe spaces for individuals who have complicated and beautiful brains. So again, I just encourage everyone to bring these conversations back home, talk about the risks, talk about when we see on the news that, people are overdosing and people are struggling with homelessness and food insecurity. Yes, these individuals often struggle with serious mental health issues, but I can tell you that many of them are also struggling with the effects of prenatal alcohol and drug exposures that lead to neurodivergence and some pretty severe brain complications and conditions that are that require more intense and often lifelong supports. So it's always a trick, when we're talking about neurodiversity and complex neurodevelopmental disorders, to balance the realities of their day-to-day with which include some real challenges with impulse control, with decision making, with executive functioning, with social encounters and social circumstances. Making eye contact for some can be very, very difficult. Sensory overload, including lights and sounds and music and all of that stuff that many of us thrive on, can be very, very difficult for brains that are wired a little bit differently. And so the day-to-day existence can be really, really tiring for many, many people. But on the other hand, we have to balance that out with the many gifts that so many people with complex neurodevelopmental conditions have. And, some of our most creative, loving, compassionate, tolerant, open and helpful and hardworking individuals that I have ever met also have a neurodiverse condition. So, everybody needs to have a sense of belonging and everybody needs to be supported so that our gifts and our strengths can shine. I really believe that we all do better when we know better. And I believe that, one of the greatest gifts that we can offer individuals with complicated mental health and learning and social difficulties is to actually, have some of those balanced conversations where we focus on things that we cannot, nor should we, fix, but we can work on, providing an environment that offers protection and safety while also providing the environment that allows people to really shine and to thrive. So again, it involves some of those tough conversations. We do need to help people who may lack some insight understand the implications and some of the complications related to their conditions, and so that they're more open to receive some of the help that they need. And I really believe we all need helpers. And again, we do need to be strength-based and focus on the things that we do well, but we can't ignore the things that are difficult. Just like if we have diabetes, right? Or if we have any other health condition, that those conditions do not define us, but we would be silly to deny the realities that come along with it. And some of those realities are problematic, and some of them can be quite devastating. If we've had a catastrophic injury or a brain injury, or we're, burdened with cancer, for example, there's nothing necessarily happy about any of those things. However, our outcomes can either get better or worse, and we can work together to provide environments that are going to lead to the most positive outcomes. So again, that's what I'm hoping you'll bring back to your kitchen tables for further conversation today. We do have a real problem with opioids. We do have a real problem with addictions and mental health and suicidality. And our people with complicated and beautiful brains are at higher risk. I hope that you found this conversation to be informative. And again, I encourage you to check out my website for more articles that will deepen your learning in this area. I do believe that it's up to all of us to support healthy communities and certainly to support healthy pregnancies in the spirit of preventing both incidences and the impact of prenatal alcohol and drug exposures that can have lifelong impacts. With many thanks, Angela.